Sending your Pokemon through game generations is one of the most unique and beloved parts of the Pokemon franchise. Though, have you ever really wondered, how far can a Pokemon actually travel? And is it even still possible to have a Pokemon from the early 2000s end up in a modern Pokemon game? Because one thing that early Pokemon games don't get nearly enough credit for is just how mind-blowing it was that you could transfer your Pokemon between generations. And remember, this wasn't like today's games where you can just push out a software update or a patch to make games compatible. Back then, everything had to work on the original hardware. Developers had to create trading systems between games that didn't even exist yet. That kind of foresight is almost unheard of today. And that's why in this video, I'll be going through the incredible journey and finding out how far a Pokemon can actually travel. Now, truth be told, this is a video I've always wanted to make, so I'm super happy I'm going to be doing this, but there's also a little bit of a bittersweet truth, and that is that as time goes on, right, the ability to send these Pokemon from these early games may fade away because the servers won't be around forever, and with them, a part of this era might quietly disappear. So creating this video is not only a personal passion project, but also I'm creating this for archival purposes, as there's always a chance that this won't be possible in the future, and I'm actually hoping that you'll be able to look back and reflect on this video if the servers ever do shut down in the future. Though before we get into this journey, right, it should be said that this isn't exactly a straightforward process. To do this, you're gonna need a lot of games and hardware, and there's actually a lot of issues and problem solving to send a Pokemon from the early 2000s to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So firstly, it should be said that it's actually not possible to send a Pokemon from Gen 1 and Gen 2 all the way up to Generation 9 through legitimate methods. The reason why is because the jump from the Game Boy Color to the Game Boy Advance didn't have a trade-up solution. So because of this, the earliest you can send a Pokemon is from Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire from 2002. Secondly, to send Pokemon from the Nintendo DS to the Nintendo 3DS and then to the Nintendo Switch, you'll need Poke Transporter and Pokemon Bank. However, there is an issue. The 3DS eShop server shut down back in March of 2023. So in order to do this, you will already need to have both Poke Transporter and Pokemon Bank installed on your 3DS. Now, thankfully, I actually have these installed, though, you know, while it works today, it also makes you wonder how long will the servers actually last. And now the third roadblock is, well, truth be told, this isn't much of a roadblock, but it's more of a technicality. So most people would say, right, that the furthest Pokemon can travel is from Pokemon Ruby Sapphire all the way to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. However, that's not actually the longest journey a Pokemon can travel, because you can actually add one more step in the process. The furthest a Pokemon can actually travel is if it's from the original GameCube game of Pokémon Colosseum. And from Pokémon Colosseum on the GameCube, it would need to be sent to Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, and then that Pokemon will need to make its way up all the way to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So the actual longest journey a Pokemon can take is from Pokemon Colosseum all the way to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Believe it or not, that's exactly what we'll be doing in this video. All right, so I'm looking on eBay right now and I can see some of the prices are not too bad. So we've got a Pokemon Colosseum on GameCube for 149 AUD, not too bad. You can also see here, Pokemon GameCube Colosseum for 179 AUD. We can get the disc for $85, but you know, I am a little bit of a collector, so I wouldn't want to just get the disc. I do want to have the kind of game case as well. And here we go, we can see Pokemon Colosseum GameCube PAL English version for 131 AUD, which is not too bad at all. I mean, honestly, this thing is just exciting in and that of itself. The fact that a Pokemon from the GameCube games can actually go and get transferred to Generation 9 is wild to me. I don't know why, but this whole process is just so exciting to me, because who would have thought that, you know, back then when Pokemon Colosseum came out all those years ago, that, you know, from these efforts that a Pokemon could potentially also live in, you know, Scarlet and Violet video games, you know, all these years later. It's actually wild to think about. And I don't think they even thought that much far ahead, but because Pokemon always added these steps and these journeys in order for them to travel through generations, it's just made it an incredible process. Now also guys, I want to say this video is a huge project, and also a fair bit of money went into buying all the requirements. If you're enjoying the video, definitely feel free to subscribe. This channel is brand new and I love creating topics around Pokemon that I just genuinely personally enjoy, I'd love to have you on board. Okay, so now that it looks like we have everything ready to go, let's actually get into this. So let's start with phase 1, which is moving Pokemon from Colosseum to Sapphire. All right, so here we are, and we're gonna actually be sending the Pokemon from Colosseum all the way to Sapphire. But here's the thing, right? I just found out while doing this that I cannot actually transfer from Colosseum to Sapphire without actually finishing the entire game. So I probably should have researched that beforehand, though luckily one of my closest mates is also an old school gaming enthusiast, and he said he'd be keen to finish the game. So I'm gonna actually get this copy sent to him. So I'm pretty excited, and I've got everything here in front of me, and I just wanna walk you through what you actually need to make this possible. And if we pull this off, it's gonna be crazy. And like the cost associated with getting a Pokemon from Pokemon Colosseum all the way to Pokemon, you know, Scarlet and Violet, it is wild, dude. So this is what you need, no joke, okay? So you do need a legitimate copy of Pokemon Colosseum, right? You do need a GameCube and a GameCube remote. So as you can see, we got the GameCube remote here. Now, I don't actually have a GameCube, but I do have the old school Nintendo Wii, which as you can see, you can actually put your GameCube memory card there, and this actually works as a GameCube as well. Only the old school ones, right? Now, you also need a legitimate Game Boy Advance. You cannot use a Nintendo DS for this. It must be a GameCube Advance. You also need a copy of a GameCube Advance game. So I got Pokemon Sapphire here, whatever you have, but you do need the actual cartridge as well. Now, to make the trade, you also need a GBA to GameCube link cable that we got here. As you can see, that goes in to the top of the Game Boy Advance, which is wild, right? Now you also need a Pokemon Gen 4 game, so I've got Pokemon Heart Gold here, and you also need a game from Generation 5, which I've got Pokemon Black White 2. You also need all of these legitimate, and of course you need 2 Nintendo DS's, or well, 1 Nintendo 3DS and a Nintendo DS. You cannot do this without having both. And to top it off, of course, you also need a Nintendo Switch, which, you know, given the current circumstances, is the easiest thing to get out of all this because, as you know, all these old school games cost a lot of money. Now, something really interesting that I found out while I was on this journey. I've got my Pokemon Sapphire and Pokemon Emerald, right? But I've actually found out while doing this that my Pokemon Emerald is not legitimate. So I bought this in 2011. I think it was my first like real job that I had, you know, outside of, like, I was still working in high school at the time. Now, the reason I figured this out was, one, it wasn't gonna work, but you can see here, it's probably hard to see there, but there's this little kind of like 4 little mechanical kind of square there. And you can see this one doesn't have it. This is all just like back soldering. So good to know and learn that, you know, your Pokemon games can be counterfeit. And I didn't know this at the time because I bought this many years ago. And, you know, it's funny, it still worked and everything. It was still normal, but, you know, now I look back at it now and I kind of think that kid that was playing that had no idea that he had a counterfeit game, which kind of sucks. But nonetheless, my Sapphire is all in working order. Okay, so here I am on my brilliant Pokemon Colosseum save. So for here, I'm going to be trading Espeon, Umbreon, and Sneasel. Let's hope this goes well. So as you can see, we've made it that this is the trade center. You may trade Pokemon with a Game Boy Advance game pack using a GCN to GBA cable. We got the cable. All right, would you like to trade Pokemon? Let's go trade. Before any trade can be made, yes. I'm kind of nervous if this doesn't work. 30 hours of game time. Our friend Costa put into this. All now relies on this moment. All right, connect a Game Boy Advance pack system with your GBA. Okay, let's see how this goes. All right, here we go. We can see our Sapphire game is in and we are about to do this. Okay, so, all right, we're all plugged in and we are going to now turn this one on. Checking connection to control. Okay, connection failed. All right, so we're trying this one again with would you like trade? Okay, before any trades can be made. All right. So we're trying this one once again. It failed for the first time. All right. Connect to Game Boy using a GCN cable. All right, let's see how we go. Second try in. All right, checking connection to controller. Checking the party Pokemon in the GBA. Connected through. Okay, here we go. Okay, if you can see that on this screen. Okay, here we go. All right. So we're going to be trading. All right, let's do this. Let's do it. We're going to be trading Espeon for Aron. Trade. There's no way. There's no way. There's no way. All right. There's no way. It's happening, fam. Chat, it is happening. We're the first step in. The first step on the way in. And Aaron was traded to Phil. Okay, great. This is wild, dude. This is a blast from the past, dude. So we're going to just do the Sneasel with the Cascoon. It's pretty cool because you actually have to control what's happening here. I'm controlling it on the GBA, so this is a bit of a little bit. But anyway, we're going to get Sneasel. I'm not sure if Sneasel can enter Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, but it should be able to enter Pokemon Home for a future game anyway, so let's get him in there. All right, so the trade is officially done. We have our Umbreon, our Espeon, and our Sneasel sent to Sapphire. Okay, so now we're at phase 2, which is sending from Gen 3 to Gen 4. So we'll be sending these Pokemon from Sapphire to Pokemon Heart Gold. Now here's the thing, right? This is where the genius foresight from Pokemon comes in, right? You know, trading from Gen 3 to Gen 4 was actually really interesting because Pokemon had to make sure that Gen 4 trading was compatible with Gen 3 games. Mind you, this is trading between generations. Now, to get the Pokemon from Gen 3 to Gen 4, you need to use a system known as Pal Park. So Pal Park is available once you've received the National Pokedex and after beating the Elite Four. So you will need to have a completed Gen 4 game to do this, and thankfully my Heart Gold copy is finished. All right, so here we are with our Pokemon Heart Gold and we got our Sapphire. Dude, I can't explain what this does for me doing this right now. Like, this is so cool, man. The fact that you can trade all the way, like I'm a little bit worried, am I gonna be able to make it to the end of this as well? That's a little bit of my concern, but let's see how we go. So as you can see, when you actually turn on Gen 4, on here, it has an option where it says migrate from Sapphire. We're gonna actually wanna click that straight away. Make Pokemon migrate from Phil's Sapphire game pack. Yes. Pokemon cannot be returned. One-way traffic. All right, so we're here with the time skip because what happened was when I was trying to transfer my Pokemon, I was in Johto and I had to full on train my Pokemon to be able to take them to Kanto. And here we are with a time skip trying to get it to trade right now. So we're in Fuchsia City. We are now attempting to go into Power Park. Welcome to the Power Park. This is where top-notch trainers who aren't satisfied with the Safari Zone come to show their Pokemon catching techniques to their peers. The fact that Pokemon even added this system in is just typical genius from them as always. Alrighty, we're going off to the next one. Who have we got? There it is, Espeon. There it is, right there. This is how you have to trade. You got to catch your Pokemon. Unbelievable that we're doing this. A Pokemon. This is an Espeon from Pokémon Colosseum. Crazy, dude. Hey, here we go. Umbreon. We actually found it. Level 62. The closer I get to this, the more nervous I'm getting. Like, is it going to be able to go through, like, you know, all the other steps necessary before we get it to Pokemon Home? Final one is the Sneasel from, again, Pokemon Colosseum. Though I don't know if Sneasel can make it in Scarlet and Violet. I can't remember now. Now we got to get these to Gen 5 games. Okay, so moving on to phase 3, which is sending the Pokemon from Generation 4 to Generation 5. So now we'll be sending these from Heart Gold to Pokemon Black 2. But here's the thing, I found out while doing this that trading from Gen 4 to Gen 5 requires you to go to the Poke Transfer Lab in the Black and White video games. The only issue is you need to have actually defeated the Elite Four in Pokemon Black 2. And I haven't done that, so Aurora and I had to get in the car and we had to get some assistance from our favorite old school game connoisseur. All right, as exhausting as it's getting, we are getting closer to the finish line, right? Now also for this, you do need 2 Nintendo DSs or 3 DSs. So from here, we have to go to the Poke Transfer Lab, and in that way, we can transfer from Gen 4 to Gen 5. All right, so we're inside the Poke Transfer Lab. Once you bring your Pokemon here, you cannot send it back. Do you still want to do it? Yes, let's just get this done. So we got that one ready. Now we need to turn this one on and get the DS download play working. Okay, here we go. We got Poke Transfer ID 38153. Let's go for it. Let's get these Pokemon in this game, dude. I am keen, man. This is big. This is big. Like, transferring from Gen 4 to Gen 5 is a big deal, and it's expensive. If you want to do this, this is an expensive process. So here we are. We're playing this this is a system where you have to, like, boomerang the Pokemon. I don't know what the devs were smoking when they made this. Dude, this is taking me way longer than I thought. Oh, there's the Espeon. So as you can see, we have our Umbreon, our Espeon, and our Sneasel inside Gen 5. And now we need to transfer these up to get them to Pokemon Bank. Let's see how we go. Now moving on to phase 4, we are moving from Generation 5 to the Poke Transporter app. So to do this, you'll need to put your Gen 5 cartridge into a 3DS with Poke Transporter installed. Remember, this app cannot be downloaded from the eShop because the servers shut down in 2023. So I'm getting a little bit exhausted now at the process because I'm on the Poke Transporter on my 3DS and I got an error code and it looks like I cannot transfer from Black White 2 into Pokemon Bank with this system. Looks like I need to update the software or something. So I'm in the middle of figuring this out right now. And like I said, man, I'm frustrated now because, you know, the Colosseum whole thing worked out. Gen 3 to Gen 4 worked out. Gen 4 to Gen 5 worked out. And now we are here. And this is why this is such a hard thing to do. But I've got a feeling we're still going to be able to get there. So let's hope we can figure this out. All right. So in Pokemon Transporter now, looks like the update worked, believe it or not. So we are able to do it. Here we go. Pokemon Transporter. Checking the game. Here we go. Connecting to the internet. Come on. Communicating with the Pokemon Bank server. All right, let's see. This is getting now close. We're getting closer and closer. All right. Pokemon sent to Pokemon Bank cannot be returned to the original game from which they were moved. Additionally, any items held by Pokemon will be sent automatically to Phil's bag. Would you like to move this box? Yes. Here we go. Your game is being saved and moved to Pokemon Bank. Wow, okay. Please open Pokemon Bank to check the Pokemon in your transport box. Dude, the suspense has been killing me. This whole process, man. Preparing. All right, let's hope that the Pokemon can be moved. Oh my gosh, we're right at the end now. Communicating with Pokemon Bank server. All right, begin. Oh no, doesn't look like they're in my box. What's going on? It's not in my box. Oh, what? All right, something's going on. It's not in my box. It's not in my box. I'm a bit nervous because it looks like I've lost something from my Pokemon, like in the process. Something didn't go right. So I'm just checking what's going on. Communicating with the Pokemon Bank server. This has now got my anxiety up because I do have those Pokemon that have made it. So here it says, at least one Pokemon remains in the transport box from your previous session. Please empty the transport box by using Pokemon Bank before using Pokemon Transport. Maybe what I will need is I'm going to now try and put a Gen 7 game in here. So here we go. We have Pokemon Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. Maybe this will help the process. I'm not sure. All right, Pokemon Bank. All right, guys. So I've got Ultra Sun in here now. I just checked online and apparently there is something known as a Pokemon Transport box, as you can see it. So you do need a Gen 6 or a Gen 7 cartridge as well for this. So there you go. That's something I found out with the process. So here we go. We do have our Pokemon. I was so scared I lost them for that second, man. I was like, oh no, they've been like transferred out, the data's gone or something. But there you go. You do need a Gen 6 or a Gen 7 game for this final process. But we can see there they are. All right, it's connecting with the Pokemon Bank server. I just cannot tell you how much stress. This whole thing has just been a ball of stress. All right, so we're gonna go there and we're gonna put these into Pokemon Bank. Umbreon, the Espeon, and the Sneasel all into Pokemon Bank. There it is. All right, now we're gonna move them from Pokemon Bank into Pokemon Home. We are nearly there, dude. We are so close now. But let's just hope that there's no more roadblock. All right, so now we are at the final phase, which is moving the Pokemon from Pokemon Bank into Pokemon Home and then into Scarlet and Violet. All right, so we've made it to the final step, and this is the step that most people would probably be familiar with, though this is the moment of truth, right? From here, we need to send the Pokemon from home, and then from there, they need to live in the Scarlet and Violet video games. All right, guys, so I've actually just hit another roadblock on Pokemon Home. So Pokemon Home says that I'm logged in on another account and I cannot access my Pokemon Home. I need to log out of the other device, but that doesn't make any sense because I'm not logged in on any other devices. So I've kind of checked everything out. I read online. So what I did was I contacted Pokemon Home and I sent the support team an email. Believe it or not, they got back to me within 3 minutes. Unbelievable. And they are now fixing the issue. So I'm going to keep you updated with how it goes. All right, we are here. We have contacted support. We are at the final rounds now. We got the Nintendo Switch here, and we are about to go into Pokemon Home. Dude, the anxiety, the amount that I want this to happen is wild, and we're right here now. Okay, so logging into Pokemon Home, as you can see. And now I'm inside Pokemon Home without my error code issue. So we are back in. I mean, this whole video has had error codes. So here we go. We are going to move, which it looks like this feature cannot be accessed on a basic plan. The feature can be accessed with the premium plan available for purchase on Nintendo eShop. And there we have it. We need to now buy the premium version. So off to the Nintendo eShop. All right, what are we doing? We are going to do the 1 month plan for 30 days. Dude, do not try this. If you just watch me do this so you do not need all these roadblocks every single time it happens. All right, okay, here we go. We're going back to move. Proceed to the screen when you can enter the moving key. Ready, let's go. We're on the same screen. Moving keys are only valid for 3 minutes. Enter the key into Pokemon Bank as soon as you can. All right, let's get this done. Move preparation is complete. There are 4 Pokemon that can be moved. All right, how would you like to move them? All but 1 Pokemon at a time. Let's do 1 Pokemon at a time. We are gonna go put this one into box 32. Can it be done? I don't know, they got the exclamation mark. All right, quit. The Pokemon that move and ability may have differ depending on, so moves and their PP and ability will be recorded for each game. Save, changes, and exit. Okay. No way. No way. Hold on, we're nearly here. There's no way. It's saving. Please tell me it worked. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to check Scarlet and Violet. Your boxes have been saved. Oh, dude. Oh, here we go. Okay, we're in Pokemon. All right, let's go to our boxes. It was box 32. All right, where are we going? Box 32, 28, 29, 30, 30. No way! We did it. We did it. Oh, that's crazy. That is wild. Pokemon awarded for overcoming all difficult challenges. Sneasel the Triumphant. Okay, so Sneasel was able to get the national ribbon. So as you can see, we have our 3 Pokemon from Pokémon Colosseum all the way to Gen 9 games. And you can see we have the Espeon, the Umbreon, and of course we have the Sneasel. Now, because Sneasel was purified, it also has a national ribbon to accompany it. And this national ribbon means it came from Pokémon Colosseum, the GameCube games. Though earning the national ribbon, which is only awarded for Pokemon who once lived in the GameCube games, is probably one of the coolest Pokemon gaming accomplishments you can get. Though after all of this, right, I'm actually kind of grateful for making this video, and I think the whole project made me get a real deep appreciation for Pokemon and how much they cared about keeping our original Pokemon. And even though you could never transfer from Gen 2 to Gen 3, they didn't really let it become commonplace, and they continued to add solutions as the years went on. And while doing this, it makes me real nostalgic for old school Pokemon. And while I love modern Pokemon, it also makes you wonder if Pokemon can ever recreate that amazing spark that they had back in the early days. And I actually do explore that topic right within this video here. Within this video, I uncover modern Pokemon games and explore how Pokemon still has what it takes to create an amazing, critically acclaimed game. If you enjoyed this video, then click the video on screen, subscribe to the channel for more, and I'll see you on the next video.